interesting to see what happens in this session. We've seen fast times on Moto2 all weekend long, pretty fast times in Moto3 as well, or some way off at certain records. It's pretty sad news here to see Jacob Wilson found fit for the Malaysian Grand Prix. His hand, but it's significant that it was damaged again. It would put the Australian in some real bother, and just when things were going so well. He was up there in the podium fight, obviously, the Australian Grand Prix before he fell on Siberia. Really good yesterday, inside the top 10 comfortably in practice, but the crash, a fast crash in the second sector of the track has damaged that hand, and well, he's sweating ever so slightly as to whether he'll be fit for on in Portugal in 2 weeks' time. So fingers crossed that Jacob heals well. Surgery booked in for Monday. Tomorrow he'll be having surgery in Italy. His fingers that he'll be able to make another appearance at Mao in 2 weeks' time.
Two Grand Prix of the season to go after this one, which looks set to be the last two Grand Prix of Jacob Wilson's Moto3 spell for now, at least. We certainly hope that he will return to this grid in the not too distant future. Charles and Elior, the rest of that, very grateful for him for joining us in the commentary box earlier on this morning for free practice 2, sharing his observations of the Moto3 this weekend, but obviously of his current situation. We wish him well. Air temperature now on our timing screen is officially up at 32 degrees. That was the track temperature yesterday afternoon when Moto3 were on track for their practice session. So they're going to be dealing with conditions here that they haven't really faced so far this weekend, and the track could behave a little bit differently in this qualifying session with 10, 15, maybe even 20 degrees of extra track temperature now that the sun has come out and is really baking this Sepang International Circuit tarmac. Qualifying one is underway. A minute of it has passed. No one quite so keen at the moment to pour out onto the racetrack. Top four, as always, will advance. Moodley here on screen was one of those in both Misano and Indonesia. Moodley, though, down in 25th place at the end of practice yesterday. Been a tough adaptation to a Sepang circuit, which feels big even if you're on a MotoGP bike. How big it must feel if you're a rookie on Moto3 machinery.
Absolutely, it's been a bit of a tough weekend as well for his teammate Cormac Buchanan. He was in the points in Phillip Island 6 days ago. In spirited ride accident. Cormac qualified in 17th, and obviously had the two riders up front, Joe Kelso and Jose Antonio Rueda, fighting for victory. Then we had a big scrap for third place, and then there was another huge scrap for 11th. I think consisted of 5 or 6 riders, and Cormac making his way to the front of that group by at the end of the final lap. This in 11th, which was his fourth result of his rookie campaign so far. First time he's been in the points since the German Grand Prix in June. Yeah, really good racecraft, I think, shown by him in the final couple of laps to make his way up to the front of that group. So Buchanan managed to come through this session in Phillip Island. Start with the number 14, which is pretty good in his Q1 sessions, and wants to do a lot of his running there by himself.
Whether that's quite the way to approach a session like this in Sepang with a good few long straights down to turn 1 that you're currently looking at. Straight to proceed this actually from 14 to 15, also certainly aided if you have a bit of a slipstream towing you down to that final corner, and also out of 8 down to 9 as well. It would certainly be useful to have some sort of slipstream to help you on your way. Plenty to get stuck into with Peter Ertl in pit lane from a Liqui Moly Dynavolt Intact GP point of view. Guido Pini going through this Q1 session and will surely be expecting to advance, but one rider who really has caught the eye this weekend in his second Grand Prix appearance is the Red Bull Rookies champion, Brian Uriarte, who certainly looks like he's going to be a name to watch in the future, maybe a name to watch this weekend. Let's get some pre-qualifying thoughts with Peter Ertl.
Yeah, good afternoon to everyone. Great to check up with Peter. We'll start with Guido. A little bit of a tricky afternoon session. We saw the incident, let's call it, with Alvaro Carpe. What did Guido say about that, and how's he feeling ahead of Q1?
There was not a lot of discussion because for me was nothing to discuss, and it's not so easy for him this weekend, but I'm optimistic he can come now in Q2, and from this point we will see how far it's possible to come in front.
Are you feeling confident around this Sepang International Circuit? It's obviously quite a demanding circuit than the first time he's been here as well.
We have two 17-year-old rookies in the team this weekend, and Sepang is really difficult for the rider. The conditions are not easy to understand, and but for the moment till now they make it quite well.
Make it quite well, exactly what Brian did yesterday. Fantastic stuff to finish inside the top. How impressed have you been with Brian this weekend?
It's nice to work with him. We have a lot of potential. What he did yesterday was very impressive, and his ideal time was even 0.3.5 faster than the second, and he did his time more or less 3 times. So it was very impressive, but now we have to see how far we are in Q2 and which start position we have. But till now he made it for a rookie very well.
Thank you, Peter, and good luck for the 2 qualifying sessions.
You're welcome.
Thanks to Elliott in pit lane. Pini was up inside the top 12 this morning in free practice 2, which would certainly credence to the idea that he would be one of the favourites in this session. But Uriarte, who we'll see in qualifying 2, third yesterday on a 2:11.2 and inside the top 14 earlier on in free practice 2. And it is one of the quirks of the weekend format that we have in Moto3 and Moto2, in that we have a practice session following a crucial practice which seeks to ride us through to qualifying 2, which means the fastest rider of this Sepang weekend so far is in this Q1 session. Ryusei Yamanaka did set a 2:10.160 earlier on this morning in free practice 2. So the empty helmets MSI squad will expect Ryusei to advance through to Q2.
It's just worth pointing out that Brian Uriarte is making his second Grand Prix appearance this weekend. For him to be in third at the end of Friday was mightily impressive for everyone watching. He's of course continuing to substitute for the injured David Munoz, who's had a bit of a nightmare, it seems, recovering from that leg fracture that he sustained back in the Indonesian Grand Prix a couple of weeks ago. He had to actually have second surgery on that leg, and because the previous, and there was a crash for is Cormac Buchanan. Attack has fallen up at turn number 4. So at least it was a relatively slow speed crash for the Kiwi. Trying to get his bike up and running once again. The Yamanaka coming out of the final turn. You imagine this is going to be an early marker in the sand for Ryusei. Is a 11.2 lap time. So round about the pace that we were showing yesterday afternoon. Still some way off what Ryusei was able to do earlier today.
That's an important milestone for Cormac Buchanan. That is now his 30th crash of the season. At our 20th round of the season. Goes straight off into turn 4. It looks like Noah Detweiler may have been angled up in that as well. His left glove unfastened. Buchanan keen to get back up and running. Of course, no lap time to his name at this stage. The track will be starting right at the back of the field. Tachikun Bawazri makes his way out of the final corner. The off-camber turn 15. Attempted lap time at this stage for Bawazri. 21st he was at the end of practice yesterday, coming to a circuit where he scored his first career point here last season. Career best finish, which he equalled Harrep this season. Bawazri, who hasn't made the progress that many would have expected, certainly his team would have expected in his second season in the class. It's that solitary World Championship point to his name so far.
A tough season for the young tyre rider. See Valentin Peroni looking a lot more like his old self here this weekend in Sepang. Finds himself in Q1, but this morning in FP2 did show some promising rhythm. Also was 11th fastest, and understandable, I think, that he was making a gradual comeback after missing pretty much all of the Indonesian Grand Prix for a horrible crash on the Friday into a windy, blustery, wet Phillip Island. I don't think is the place to imbibe plenty of confidence from the conditions there, but Ronnie looking a lot more like his old self here this weekend, and that shows in this session so far. Second place just behind Yamanaka.
Connected to our colleague and long-time friend Matt Dunn. who informed us over the weekend that Valentin Peroni actually spends a lot of his time training out here. His last 3 pre-seasons, he's spent 2-3 months out here in this part of the world and does know this track very well. Spends a lot of time training with former Moto3 podium finisher here, Zulfani Khairuddin, and Moto3 debutant this weekend, who we'll see in Q2, Hakim Danish. Certainly flying the Malaysian flag proudly so far this weekend. He's been a regular in or around the top 10 so far. Ricky Rossi and Stefano Neppa, 2 under-fire Italians looking set to drop off the Moto3 grid at the end of this season. Neppa was slowest of all in practice yesterday. Ricky Rossi was only up in 20th place, which is a shame for Rossi, given that in the run-ups this weekend he described this circuit as one of his very favourites on the calendar. There's been no evidence so far this weekend to back that up, as Neppa is not exactly earning himself much praise in the upcoming Paolo Simoncelli vlog.
That was Paolo Simoncelli looking a little disgruntled with what he saw out on track there. The number 82 on the machine. It seems as though Neppa will be out there, out of that team in 2026. We know Casey O'Gorman will be coming in that squad next season. 2 interesting rumours doing the rounds as to who will be on the second bike in the 658 squad, the Corsa team next year. As I heard was that Noah Detfiler, the Swiss rider currently riding for the CIP Green Power squad, could well be in line, second seat. Detfiler, and at the easiest of seasons, I think it's fair to say, still chasing his first championship point of the year, second season in this class. It was believed could well be on the grid for a 3rd successive season.
Some financial backing with him, the Intervetin sponsorship, which makes it very easy to distinguish with his teammate Scott Ogden. When the CIP KTMs are on track together, or as read either calming word or perhaps pick up the backside. Who can tell? Always very difficult to understand, truly know how Hiroshi Oyama is feeling. Great poker face, and keep himself very calm and level-headed, whatever's going on the racetrack. Once again, Stefano Neppa is waving just through, this time on the rundowns from turn 8 to 9. Neppa currently 8, he's the 2:12.757, which is a second quicker than he went in practice yesterday, but he kind of had to be, given that yesterday he was 2.5 seconds off the pace.
Neppa was just finding his feet again in Moto3 after a real barren spell through the mid part of the season. Successive races when he's been in the points, and he was in the top 10 in Indonesia for the first time in an age, and all the way back to the start of the season where we were in Qatar. We just saw in the previous shot in pit lane there that Cormac Buchanan had made his way back to the garage. But we're going to have a bit of an update here from Elliot. We can see him on our screens just now.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you just see him walking out the back of the box, he looks in some discomfort. I don't know if it's still on the TV screens there. I don't think it is. He's holding his sort of left hip, just round the back of the left hip. In some discomfort is the New Zealand. You can see shots in it. Unfortunately, session over for Buchanan. Fingers crossed.
It's a real shame for Cormac. He is okay and he'll be able to take part in the race. Just twisted something when he crashed out at turn 4 earlier, and there on the front end of Yusi Yamanaka's little MSI KTM coming through turn number 15. Has been the fastest so far in this session, but we are still miles away from fastest times we saw earlier today. Yamanaka's 2:10.1. It's more than a second faster than the best time so far in this session.
Will Yamanaka feel that he has to go again here, that he hasn't done enough? I suspect he will have to just exercise some caution in the final few minutes remaining, but time is now ticking away. He won't have time to go out, so even if he did want to go out again, Yamanaka will have to sit and wait. Guido Pini likewise around. Well, look at the clock, Guido. There's less than 2 minutes of this session remaining. It appears to rain down there at Intact GP, so the top 2 no longer in the action. The likes of Peroni, Moodley, Carraro, Morelli and Rossi can find some pace. Some red faces down at the MSI and Intact squads. Step Village coming through the front of the shot with the yellow flashes on his VIP Green Power ATM. Carraro looking to get out of the way of Stefano Neppa, or outbraking himself and getting out of the way. One of the 2. Neppa pushes on now. Neppa needs a 2:11.7 or better move through to Q2. His best so far in this session is a 2:12.7.
going to happen on this lap. He's had a bit of an issue on what was that, turn 12, I think. An easy session for the young Italian, who still remains very uncertain. Everyone just has to get ideal track position going on for this back straight, leading on what will be their final lap. Well, obviously, fast lap times coming in on this particular lap. We have to say Yamanaka is probably safe, he potentially as well. The riders that are still out there on track, I mean, Joel Esteban, I guess, is one rider that you would probably expect to be a bit higher up than he currently is, 9th in this session. I mean, Esteban was, what, hundredths of a second off scoring the podium 6 days ago in Phillip Island.
Well, he did it, trying to basically take everybody around the outside through the race in Phillip Island with pretty decent success, it has to be said, taking that career best, equaling 4th place. Esteban's just 3 from the back of the queue there at the top of the picture, making their way down to turn 1 on the 78 bike. Did come here last year, did Esteban. Unfortunately, crashed on his first lap of the Grand Prix and fractured his humerus, which saw him miss the final race of the season in Barcelona. Esteban is going to match his career best 7th place on the grid back in Australia a week ago. This is a crucial minute and a half for him.
Be a crucial minute and a half. Team Peroni who came across the line just before the checker flag came out. In 3rd position, he's by no means guaranteed a spot in Q2, but started to do his own running, which you have to admire. Story there. Pair on the right of the shot, that is on his crew chief on the Tech 3 box. He's so impressive as a rookie in 2025. Obviously gone off the ball ever so slightly after that huge crash in Indonesia, but prior to that, in a real run of superb performances in qualifying in particular. Had 4 front rows in the previous 5 races before that. He was turning into something of a front runner in this class. See if he can make it work his way back to his team position.
So I'm getting a little bit irritated here as Boatri's getting tangled up with Carraro. Esteban's also trying to fight his way through, and this is delaying Esteban's final lap. He's now going to have to follow Carraro through turn 12. He's not going to be able to, is he? He is just about able to drop it around the outside. I told you he loves to overtake people around the outside. He's doing it again here, but look how much time it's cost him. 9/10 of a second adrift now with just 1 more sector to go. Not even the most powerful of slipstreams is going to tow him into the top 4 from there. Alfredo Nepa, potentially Ricky Rossi if he has a strong final sector, but with a cutter back down to earth for Esteban after his near podium exploits last time out. Morelli wise to get well out of the way there as a sideways Aspar KTM is launched in his direction. Boasri a bit crossed up and wide out of the final corner too, so I don't think this is going to really amount to much for any of this queue who go across the line. Does anybody improve? Esteban does, who does jump ahead of Rossi and Nepa into 7th place. Boasri only 10th on a 2:12.586, and the top 4 going into those final runs remain our top.
Peroni and Woodley can rest easy. Appearing in Q2 for 5 minutes time. Peroni just comes across the line without improving. This is stuff for him to get through into the Q2 session. So Yamanaka with the 2:11.2 was the fastest bike, over a quarter of a second from Guido Pini. Peroni then on 2/10 further back of that. Woodley in by under 2/10 seconds. So he's up from those 4 riders. There is Guido Pini. I decided not to go out in those final couple of minutes. I'm not sure whether that was a slight mistake in his calculation of the time that was left, but in the end, it didn't matter.
In the end, whether it was by accident or by design, they probably used tyre in that Q1 session, which will pay them back when we get into the business end of qualifying 2. Push it out to Moodley then. It is by just under 2/10 of a second. His 5th Q2 appearance of the season. The 3rd time in the last 5 qualifying sessions actually that he's advanced via qualifying 1. The bike of Ryusei Yamanaka that he took to P1. So I guess if you want to look at it that way, 2 sessions out of 2 today that Ryusei Yamanaka has top.
It's a difficult rider to read, isn't he? Ryusei Yamanaka, 22nd at Phillip Island 6 days ago, and the fastest of the lot so far here on Saturday, but still Q2 to go. You will be taking part in it.
Yamanaka, Pini, Peroni and Moodley, your call to go through from qualifying one. Nicola Carraro and Marco Murray on their respective Hondas pulled out 2.11s, but they weren't enough. Joel Esteban, 7th, missed out by a third of a second. Ricky Rossi, 8th, ahead of Stefano Nefer, Patrick Orn, Boazri, Noah Detweiler and Cormac Buchanan, who crashed at turn 4 and was unable to get back out again. Yamanaka then tops qualifying 1 in Sepang. After topping pre-practice 2, can he complete the clean sweep on Saturday and take pole position? He remains in the fight. G2 coming up next. Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to sweltering Sepang, which hasn't necessarily felt that way for much of this Malaysian Grand Prix weekend, but it certainly does now as the heavy cloud coverers began to go away somewhat. There is a little bit of blue sky overhead. The temperature cracks up, so does the pressure. Moto2 qualifying coming up in around about half an hour's time. So much on the line in those two sessions. World Championship contenders jockeying for position on the grid for round 20 of the season. Piso sprint to come as well. Just under 2 hours, 3 p.m. local time. Watching somewhere else in the world. We've just gone past 1. Before we get to all of that, to Moto3. Here are your 18 riders battling it out. It's been a Red Bull KTM IO 1-2 so far. The team's champions dominating yesterday afternoon. Jose Antonio Reda and Alvaro Carpe. But while you look at your 18-rider lineup, let's talk MSI. Yusa Yamanaka topping the session moments ago, qualifying 1. We now know whose teammate is going to be in 2026. The debutant, number 13, you can see him there on your screens. The young Malaysian superstar Hakim Danish confirmed at MSI for 2026. Sanka Keras also been going very well this weekend. It's good news all round for Jordi Cattell, who's now speaking to Elliot.
Yeah, he certainly is. Jordi, good news ahead of the session. You've announced who Rayusi's teammate is going to be next year. Hakim Danish is here this weekend and going really well. Just how exciting is it for the team, for Danish, and also for the Malaysian fans as well?
Yeah, for everybody. We started to work with Zitaka and Sepang International Circuit 3 years ago. With Danish, we did two complete seasons in the Junior GP. He's improving a lot, also in the Red Bull Rookies Cup. And for sure, our project must to provide them to a good opportunity, a good chance for next year. But it's true that they are doing a good job. We are really impressive, but we must to be very patient and to have calm, just to provide them a lot of things to grow in the next 2 or 3 years.
What have you seen in Hakim that you've liked as a team? He's obviously, as you say, gone really well in the Rookies Cup this year, P3 overall, got a victory. So what do you see in Hakim for the future?
When he was joining the ETC in the Junior GP, we was interested. Immediately we saw in them some potentials. We bet for them, and after 2 years working together, seeing his potential, finally we take the decision. It's not easy because our team always try to have a good lineup for fighting for all. But for next year, probably we must to reduce a little bit our expectation and to work more for thinking in the future.
Just back to this year for a second, Rayusi into Q2. How's Angel feeling as well? We know that P2 is really important for the team and for Angel. So how's he feeling in that chase, and how's Yamanaka feeling as well?
Yes, Naka, after the crash of Japan, he's struggling a lot because he has some physical problems that did not permit to be in the 100%. But Angel, we think that they are ready to be on top because it's very important to start in the first or second row for tomorrow. And for Hakim, whatever result has been good for us. Will be good for us.
Jordi, thanks for your time and good luck for qualifying.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Elliot. Thanks as well to Jordi Cattell from MSI Squad. Exciting news, not just for his team, but also for the Malaysian fans. We will have a new hero to cheer on at World Championship level. Nish has been really impressive so far this weekend. 11th fastest in practice yesterday. He was as high as 6th at the end of FP2 this morning. And maybe not too much of a stretch to say that he could well be challenging for a spot on the front row in today's qualifying session. The exciting talent that showed consistently through this year's Red Bull Rookies campaign. At one point looked as though he was on course to win it, but just lost out to Brian Uriarte. Still finished inside the top 3 and is on course for a top 3 finish in this year's Junior GP 3 Series 2. So Hakim Dinesh, another young rider coming through on the junior categories to keep an eye on in 2026.
Part of a real wave of talent from Asia. The Asia Talent Club really is doing sort of phenomenal work at the moment. Veda Karma is another one, the young Indonesian who was the runner-up in the Red Bull Rookies Cup this year. Expected to be on this grid in 2026. So what's Tan, who we saw earlier this season as an injury replacement in the Snipers team. We saw him back in Mandalika. There's a couple of very fast young Japanese stars in the Age Talent Cup too, who are fighting actually for the championship, which could be decided later on this afternoon. There's Ogiwara and Ikigami, who are